Hey there, and welcome back to Approved AF, the licensing podcast, stories and strategies from mortgage pros who got licensed and leveled up. I'm Catalina Stepanoff, and I work behind the scenes at licensingstore.com, where we help mortgage companies just like yours get licensed, stay compliant, and scale without the chaos. Today's guest is Ryan McCallister, president of F5 Mortgage, a high flyer in the mortgage industry with experience leading high-performing teams and building client-first lending solutions. With half a decade of building F5 Mortgage, Ryan brings a sharp mix of executive leadership, entrepreneurial vision, and deep industry knowledge to the table. Under his leadership, F5 Mortgage has grown into a respected name known for integrity, speed, and service. Whether he's scaling operations, navigating market shifts, or mentoring the next generation of mortgage professionals, Ryan leads with strategy, purpose, and heart. I'm excited to dig into his story and his mindset and the lessons he's learned building a business that's built to last. All right. Welcome to the show, Ryan. I want to introduce you onto this podcast, and to kick things off, love for you to let people know who you are and give us a little intro about yourself and what F5 Mortgage is all about.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me. So I'm Ryan McCallister. Important note there, that's McCallister with two C's. There are some McAllisters out there, but the two C's
That's
is
not you.
not me. No, the two C's is the proper spelling, if you ask me. But I'm the founder and CEO of F5 Mortgage. So we're a fast-paced, fast-growing true broker. What I mean by that is we just broker. We don't have correspondent lines. We don't do title or insurance, real estate. We just focus on getting our clients the best possible deal. And then for me as the owner, it's about providing the best possible product for my loan officers. So that's, not just leads, it's live transfer leads. It's not just technology off the shelf. It's some custom built stuff, some custom built, integrations, awesome support, awesome leadership, and all around just kind of providing the best possible value for our loan officers. Been doing it for about 5.5 years now. And we've had some ups, had some downs, had some sideways, but I'm excited to share that with everyone.
Yeah, I definitely want to pick your brain a little bit more about that, and that way you can really share some of your insight, because 5 years is no joke, especially in this industry. So what led you to start the company? What was that moment that you decided to stop playing small and really go after it?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's no one that really kind of comes up to you and just says, "Hey, you ready? Go ahead." You have to kind of make that leap of faith. And for me, that was hard, because I'm very much a planner type of personality. I like to know what the next step is, how are we going to approach that, what are we going to do, and that's definitely not the case when you're running a company. Right? There's 100 issues coming in from 100 different directions, and none of them seem to have a clear answer. So for me, I guess to take a step back, it was, credit to my wife who gave me that confidence to move forward. And that kind of came from my time in retail. So I was in retail for a little over 5 years, like 5.5 years in retail as well, with two of the biggest lenders at the time, right? So Rocket and Wells Fargo. And that gave me a lot of insight in a lot of different things. So retail, they do have some benefits, some positives, right? They have, most of the time, they have a pretty strong technology presence for their loan officers, right? It's all internal. There's not different lenders. There's not different things going on, which makes it nice as a loan officer when there's only a set amount of things you have to deal with. But it just makes it easy to step in to their system and start producing loans right away. I was fortunate enough at the end of my kind of the time in retail, I moved over to the wholesale side as an account executive. And that's what really kind of opened my eyes to the whole broker space. It was funny that when I first started out as an AE, I saw the pricing on wholesale, and I thought there was an error in my system. I was like, hey, something's wrong. This is like 300 bips better than what I was just selling on retail last month. So that was eye-opening, but then also just to see the speed at which brokers were able to do things the optionality that they had with, all the different products and lenders they could work with. But they didn't quite have that strong ecosystem or that strong support system or system an LO could just plug into that I saw on the retail side. So I was like, there seems to be an opportunity somewhere in the middle where you could kind of have a hybrid of both, right? You could have that system that an LO could just plug into and start, if they're hungry enough, just start right away producing loans, but also have that pricing, that speed, that optionality that the broker side had. So for me, that was kind of the idea of F5 Mortgage. And at first it was going to be a McCallister Mortgage, which is just way too long of a name. And, is it 2 P's? Is it, no one knows. It was, the idea was a hybrid, right? Kind of refresh that broker model.
Yeah.
And people don't know F5 on the keyboard refreshes your screen, refreshes your program.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah. If you had F5 on a Mac, I think it's Command F5 or Function F5. But that's the idea, right? Is we're refreshing the mortgage process and trying to, pair the benefits of both worlds there.
That's always so interesting to me to see the creation, the brainchild of how the name of a business comes to be, because I have a last name Stepanoff, and that's Stepanoff Mortgage is going to be a mouthful. So feel you on that one. When you did end up taking that leap, props to your wife all the way, and getting that going, what was your biggest mindset shift from going from the AE side of things into the CEO side of things?
Yeah, it's, when I was an LO, it was just being the best LO is what really got me paid, right? And you got to start thinking like a CEO, and that's what ultimately builds the company, right? So at first I thought it would just be more of the same, but hopefully bigger paycheck, right? But the reality was it was completely different, not just from what I was doing, but from that mental aspect as well, right? Because again, as a loan officer, it's just you, it's your pipeline, it's your deals. But when you're the CEO, when you're the leader of the company, everything you do, whether you realize it or not, does actually impact everyone else, right? There's always ripple effects on every decision that you make, right? Every decision impacts your team's ability to win. So it's really going from that individual player mindset to more of that, kind of coach controlling the whole entire playbook and, making those decisions that, again, whether you realize it or not, are going to impact everyone in your organization.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a different kind of thought process from being kind of under somebody else and playing in their pond to this is your pond and everybody else has to swim in your lane.
Right, for sure.
Can you share a moment when you caught yourself thinking back and reverting back to a loan officer mindset, and when you had to correct your own self and into thinking more long-term CEO?
Yeah, it's still something I work on every day. It's I'm not good at many things, but I am pretty good at being a loan officer, which means I can jump into files, I can fix things, I can tinker with things, try to get the loan to go AE. But the problem there is that you can't scale if you're the answer to every single question, right? So it's
so true.
It's really hard. At least initially, it was really hard for me to step back from being in every single loan and trying to fix every single issue. So, and I tried to run the company from a viewpoint of, hey, what would be the best decision here? What's the best decision if I was a loan officer? What would I like to do? What makes the most sense, right? So it's trying to balance that, what's best for the loan officer, but what's also best for the company long term, right? Because if I'm an LO, hey, pay me 500 basis points, give me the best rate sheet, give me an LOA that does everything, but that's not sustainable in most instances as a company. So it's tough, right? It's trying to focus more on the bigger, what I say, $2 million problem or $2 million opportunity versus the $20 problem or opportunity. And shout out to my VP, Adam. He's kind of stepped into that role of working on the individual loans, which has allowed me to focus more on those bigger opportunities for the company and really kind of focus on being that CEO rather than being, kind of stuck in the individual loans there.
Working on the business rather than in the business. Yeah. What, again, 5 years is no joke. This industry has really morphed and is
a crazy 5 years.
Yeah. Well, absolutely wild. But what in that growth, in that time that you've been building it out, what has been the hardest thing to delegate out, or what has been the most beneficial thing for you to delegate out?
It kind of goes back to me just being like a planner type of personality. So for me, I'd say it's control big time, right? It was realizing that there is multiple paths to get to the same goal, right? Because early on I was like, okay, here's the goal that I want to get to. Here's the path you have to take to get to that goal. And it was like, that's the way to do it. You got to do it this way. This is how we get to the goal. And it's slowly realizing, okay, do I actually care about that path, or do I care about the goal? I care about that end result. And once you realize it's okay, well, this is the end result that what I actually care about, that frees you up to allow different paths to that goal. And again, back to my VP, Adam, he's been awesome in helping me do that. He's totally different than me. He's British too. So he's even sounds different than me. He does things completely different than how I would do them. And, it's been a challenge. You're like, I don't know if that's going to work. But, I step back and I work on my CEO stuff I'm working on and let him control that. And, to his credit, he gets to that goal. So I would say that's the biggest thing, is just taking my hands off and letting the people and the processes that I've put in place work, but ultimately get to that end goal.
It sounds like you and Adam built up a good relationship of trust there too. You trust his decision making.
I can't stand him. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, he's awesome. Yeah, he's awesome.
Adam who? Yeah. No, good. That's really awesome. I hear just from brokers all the time, I just don't have time to think big. I'm too in the weeds. What would you say to somebody who felt like they were stuck in that production mode?
You got to find the right-hand man or woman, right? I think that's so important in what we're doing. There's so many things coming at us that you don't even realize when you're starting the business, right? That's why I work with you guys, right? Oh my God, all this compliance stuff. Every single state is different. They all have different rules, regulations. Running the company is legitimately a full-time job outside of being an LO, right?
Like more than 40 hours.
Oh yeah. I work more now than I did in retail, and I wouldn't trade it because it's awesome. It's, our own thing that we're building here. It's our own kind of process, but you really got to have the right people in place that you can trust, give them the keys, give them the runway to run and do what they have to do. And if you have the right people there, you really can focus on the other things that are really important to growing the company and just being sustainable long term.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. In the framework of being a CEO, of being a company owner, and building out something that is your own, that you can stand behind and be proud of, what is a opportunity that you had to walk away from because it just wasn't right? And even though that felt like a risky move, but that trade-off was worth it.
Lots of things. Saying yes. I think saying yes to everything that comes across your desk is just how you stay small, and ultimately ends up costing you more in the long run. So, initially when I started the company, it was just me figuring things out. Right, I was doing every single role, and the word got out there, and people started raising their hands like, "Hey, I want to come over. Let's do this." Like, what? You want to work with me? Like, I don't know what's going on. Sure, come on over. Like, no questions asked. Come on over. And that's really changed over the years, right? It's the hiring process and finding the right people. It's so important, just at least for how we have our business structured, right? You really got to protect the culture. You really got to treat it like your margin, because it is really, right? And I've hired some people back in the day that nowadays I wouldn't, right? On paper, it made sense. Look up their stats. Hey, this is a good producer. They're going to come in. They should be able to, write some loans, help us out. But, maybe their personality just wasn't exactly what they're looking for. They just didn't get along with other people. And ultimately they ended up leaving anyway. And it just kind of disrupted things. It made things worse. And, nowadays I'm a lot more focused on that culture, that personality fit than I was in the past. And we've walked away from people that on paper probably would have been pretty good fits, but culturally they just weren't. And we've had to move on from them.
Yeah. You seem a lot like me in the sense of like being a planner, being a little more type A, not a really like just wing it kind of person. It's not my personality. It doesn't.
Is that from all the emails I sent you asking questions? Is that what you said?
Yeah. But like in that decision-making process, how do you lay it out to decide what feels right for the team? I know we talked about, what is best for the company's culture overall, but are there other factors that do you like weigh it out with your wife, pro con chart, flip a coin? How do you like internalize that and walk me through that process?
Yeah, it's a process I've built over the years just from trial and error. So I remember in the retail days, a popular saying or, one of the culture things was, hey, the money and numbers they follow, they're not, they're not leading decisions. And yeah, that's easy when you're a publicly traded company and have billions of dollars and you just kind of test things out, right? But when you're smaller, my size, you really do have to look at those numbers, but that's just, it's a piece of the puzzle, right? So for me, it starts with the gut, my instincts, right? Whether it's a vendor or it's an LO or a person, whatever it may be, like I'm asking myself, hey, do I trust this person? Do I like this person? Like if they're calling me, am I going to be like angry that they're calling me or like not excited to have this conversation? Do I trust this person? Like no matter how good their widget or service or whatever it is that they're selling, like I don't really trust the person. I don't really like the person, and it takes a lot for me not to like someone. But if there's just that weird feeling there, like that's where it starts, right? They have to be that good fit, that good connection. Not perfect, right? But it just has to feel good right up front, right? So that's step one. Secondly, the numbers are super important, right? And how you measure those numbers, right? Maybe it's not going to provide an ROI right away, but 6 months, 12 months down the road, is this worth it? And can I measure it? Is it just, I think this is going to work, or I think this might help? Can you actually measure what this is doing? Is this actually solving some sort of problem that we have or that we need fixed or in addition to? And then there's also the opportunity cost there, right? Maybe it's not like a physical cost, but if Adam's listening to this, he's probably laughing. So I say it every single day to him, like, what's the next best thing we could be doing here? Like is there something better that we should be focused on here, right? So evaluating the different types of costs, and then just the people side of it as well too is kind of the final part. Like, does this help my people? Does this give them more headaches? Is this something that my people could even use? Like, is this something, if it's, a vendor or something, is this something that's going to be adopted, or is this helpful in any way? And then also in regards to people asking people, right? I've got a couple of trusted people I ask outside of my company, within my company. Again, I'm wrong quite a bit. So I like to get different ideas, different feedbacks and things. And other times too, it's just a completely different angle. I might be so laser focused on what I think this thing is going to do that maybe I don't realize the other opportunity that another person or a second set of eyes could have on it. So to answer the question, right, it's gut, it's numbers, different types of numbers, and then just checking how it impacts the people and what other people think. And then I kind of put that all together and, give it a thumbs up or thumbs down, and we implement it right away or we move on.
So it sounds like, again, you have like company goals set out and then KPIs aligned with each of those goals so that it's actually measurable.
Yeah.
And then investing in systems, resources, and the team to help build that and move it forward. Would you put more stock in investing in the systems and resources or in your internal team?
That's an interesting question. I think the internal team, ultimately at this point, I think I've built such a solid group of people here that, hey, maybe on paper and the spreadsheet, this makes sense. But if my team's telling me it doesn't, or it's not solving a problem, I would go with them over that, no matter what, what the number said, at least at this point. And it takes a while to get to that point. That's not something I would have answered that differently a couple of years ago. But with my team now, the people, in my circle, I would trust their opinion over what, a spreadsheet said.
That's a really good point. Again, it really feels like the council that you have around you, you've built a lot of trust within your team, within the people that brain trust that you're tapping into. So when they do, and it also sounds like you've given the space for them to disagree with you.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I think that's really important for, new CEOs to kind of not go on a power trip, but also allow their team to give them that criticism, that feedback, that they can balance each other out, because ultimately it does make them better. And if they're too scared to say anything, then you never know what the problem is.
Well, and that's what's so important about Adam, and it's not to make this a podcast about Adam, but like he'll just straight up tell me, no, that's wrong, or I don't think that here's why, and I value it, right? There's companies that just have yes men all around them, are scared to speak up, and that maybe it makes you feel good as the owner, but ultimately I don't think it puts your LOs or your company in a better position. So yeah, having that circle or that person you can really trust, really bounce ideas off of, and creating that environment where they're not scared to speak their mind or give their opinion on something is super valuable. I mean, ultimately at the end of the day, I could just ignore it and do what I want to do. And sometimes I do that, right? Sometimes I feel so strongly about something that I might just do it, but ultimately it's balancing those different opinions and, having all that valuable input that I trust and really factor into what we're doing. So yeah, it's super important.
So kind of switching gears a little bit, you again have built a wonderful company over the last 5 years. You've seen this mortgage market in multiple seasons. What's been the biggest leadership lesson during the different seasons of this mortgage market that you've taken away, that you've implemented?
Multiple seasons? What do you mean? Everything's been absolutely fine.
Roses and sunshine.
Yeah,
where have you been?
It's been interesting. I've seen, I don't think I've seen a normal market, like as a broker owner, right? We started the company in late 2019. I think we got Michigan approved like right at the beginning of 2020, like early January. And then a couple of weeks later, like everything shut down, right? I was like, uh-oh,
yeah.
What did I just do? Like everything's falling apart. I just started this whole company. But the silver lining, at least for mortgages, was rates fell off a cliff, right? It was probably the easiest market ever, right? You could do like a 2.9% for free. Everyone was in the 4 or 5% range. Everyone was getting PIWs. It was super, super easy. And then, rates started to normalize and it was like, well, they're not going to go to like 7%. This is fine. And then the next day they went to 7%. I was like, uh-oh. But it's, it was a blessing in disguise. Downturns, they expose stuff, right? They expose the holes, your bad habits, maybe some questionable head counts, right? And the lesson there is you have to be quick. You have to be nimble. You have to trim the fat and tighten processes, right? You can't control the market. Or you can't, outrun the market, but you can out execute your competition, right? So from the leadership standpoint, the message was, let's get back to basics, right? It's still $1 trillion market. There's still people buying homes. There's still people doing refinances. We still have leads coming in. Let's get back to the basics, right? The industry doesn't reward convenience, it rewards consistency, right? It's not reinventing the wheel. It's calling our leads, it's calling the realtors, it's getting back to the basics and executing on what we know works. And that was the message, and that's what we tracked. And we've had some LOs that have had their biggest paychecks ever, right? Even post the COVID boom, right? And that's just simply by doing the things that work, wanting it more than the other LOs, competing, and putting in the effort to win. And that's been our formula, and it's been working pretty well.
I think that's really awesome. There's a lady I was listening to on a different podcast, and she was talking about how every problem she reframed her mindset to say these are no longer problems, these are opportunities. So you took a 7% interest rate and turned it into an opportunity to just go back to basics and really hone that in.
Yeah, for sure.
How do you keep your team motivated and like hopeful, even when everything's so unpredictable or there's a slowdown in the market?
I think it starts with just being honest and being real with what's going on. Downturns are not what kill companies. I think it's the silence of the leadership that does.
Wow, so that's big.
Yeah, thanks. I think it's it's simple, right? It's just having the transparency. It's not secretly changing things or telling people everything's rosy when maybe there are some challenges, right? For me, it's always just been complete transparency. That's one thing I never really liked about the retail side. That seemed like it was always, I was being sold as the LO on why this cut to my pay was so good for me, or why this terrible thing was actually really sweet, So I just tell it as it is. Like, hey, look, and here's an issue here. Here's what we're going to do about it. Here's our plan to attack it. Here's what I need you guys to do. And here's what's going to happen when we do it. I just think burying your head in the sand doesn't help anyone. I want to be transparent. I want to be proactive. I want to give them, tools, whether that's, different scripts or leads or, any sort of support that they need, just to remove any of those external things that we can't control and just get back to focusing again on the basics and the stuff that we know that works, and just making sure we're all on the same page with it.
I mean, that communication and support is so big, but you have to be, present as the leader of your team, in order to give that to them. So, I mean, good job for not shying away from those tough conversations, because you're right, a lot of people do, and it really does impact their business long term.
Yeah, and it's going back to like, okay, if I'm an LO at F5 Mortgage, what do I want? I just want to know the truth. Like, what's going on? What's the company dealing with? What are the issues? And then once I know that, okay, I know why these decisions being made. I know why we're doing this. That makes sense. We're all on the same page here. Like, let's go get it.
Yeah. What's something that you wish more mortgage company owners did through these tough seasons?
I wish they did. I wish they did more of the same, selfishly. It's good for my recruiting. I guess more so for like the bigger companies, right? Like the layoffs and scaling back on leads and marketing stuff. That's nice for me, because we're on offense. We're pushing forward. We're marching forward, and some of those bigger companies aren't, and that's been nice for recruiting. I don't know. Every company is different. I think for us, at least my mindset is playing defense too long is not good. I think being able to make decisions quickly, fail quickly, right? Okay, I went through that decision process. I think this is good. A month later, it's going completely the wrong way. Cool, let's kill it. Let's move on to something else. So I think it just goes back to being fast and nimble. And again, that's kind of a benefit of a broker, right? At least a shop like us, where it's just me. Like ultimately, I make the decisions. Like, yes, I talk to my circle, I talk to my people, but it doesn't have to be a 3-month decision process. Like, if it makes sense, if it checks all the boxes, let's do it. Let's keep pushing forward. So as simple as it sounds, I think just being nimble, being quick on your feet, is super important in any market, really, but especially in a downturn or a tougher season.
Yeah. This wasn't one of our questions, but how do you handle that level of stress? Because there is a different level of playing as a loan officer and then moving into a CEO and being responsible for those decisions. And, every choice that you're making doesn't just affect you. It affects, long-term, the team and everything else. Like, how do you walk yourself down when that stress level starts to become very high?
I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. It's still evolving. I'm still learning. I'll give myself credit. I guess, the issues and things I deal with now, I don't think I would have been able to deal with 5 years ago. So I think that's just part of the learning process of the journey of a CEO, right? Because I was a good LO, but no one taught me how to be a CEO. I went to business school. I have a finance degree, but it's like nothing really prepares you for it, really, other than experience. So I don't know. I mean, I don't think there is a simple answer there. I mean, I go out, I play with the kids, I try to turn things off, but any other CEO listening to this knows that's really hard to do, right? It's always on my mind, what's going on or what the opportunity or issue is. But I think it's something you just learn along the way. It's something that grows with you. I keep telling myself, hey, I've just made it through probably one of the toughest markets ever. Knock on wood, we're on the other side of it. So I think at this point, it's all sunshine and rainbows. If I could handle the last couple of years, I don't think there's anything I can't handle. And I think again, the silver lining is this has been my MBA the last couple of years. I've made a bunch of mistakes. I've learned a bunch of things, but I have learned from it, and that's what's most important. Is not how many times you get pushed down, it's how many times you stand up, and it's learning, it's growing, it's continuing to push them forward. And I think it's just a process that you got to go through.
Yeah. That's very insightful, to kind of like train up that CEO resilience muscle.
Mm-hmm.
What does playing big mean to you?
It means something different to me now than maybe it would have when I was first starting the company. Nowadays, I think it means building something that works without me being here, right? If I were to go into a coma tomorrow, right? I think the company would continue. Our SOPs, our processes, our leaders that we have in place are all very solid. They're battle tested, right? The company does not need me to continue pushing forward, right? And beyond that, I don't want to be the biggest company. I just want to be the best company for a certain type of LO, right? And that's not just the LOs, but our clients as well too. I want to be that company that changes lives for everyone, right? And my biggest measure of success is my LOs paychecks, right? We're a commission based company. So when I'm talking big or talking growth, there's companies out there that I used to look up to, and in some ways I still do, right? They have 1,000+ LOs, but you look up the production and you see half the LOs didn't close a loan. It's like, well, okay, that's cool. You've got 1,000 LOs, but half of them aren't making money. So like, how cool can it be for the LOs? So for me, it's more about making big paychecks for my LOs, helping the clients with a fast, nimble company, right? Just being the championship team. You're not necessarily the biggest team, but the championship team that maybe is the underdog or maybe doesn't have the all-star players or whatnot. But just having that winning mindset to go out there and just be the most efficient, hardworking, happy team out there, I guess is the simple way to put it.
I mean, I definitely would say you guys probably have a great mindset structure from everything that you've shared with us so far.
Yeah, I like to think so.
Can you share a recent risk or decision that you're proud of that really reflects your growth as a CEO?
Yeah, I think it's getting back to just saying no to a lot of things. I'm sure you get it too on LinkedIn, right? Every single day there's some sort of promotional thing in my inbox. Hey, can you use another 6 appointments on your calendar, right? And like when I was first here, I was like, yeah, that sounds sick. Like let's look at this. Let's take this meeting. Let's do this. So I think it again just goes back to saying no to a lot of things, but then more so rolling up my sleeves too, and again kind of talking about those $2 million problems that I like to work on. It's really learning stuff that I think will be fundamental to the business moving forward. So the buzzword nowadays is AI, right? And there's 1,000 different companies out there with 1,000 different AI things, and they're always popping up. And the latest vendor and sorry, Hadad, but AIM, every single new vendor in AIM is like some sort of AI thing. So it's okay, well, this is important, but like, do I want to just pay for this service or do I want to spend some time actually learning the AI, like actually learning like what's going on here? Like, I believe it will be fundamental in the business moving forward. So I've invested a lot of time, after hours, weekends, during the day, like learning this AI stuff, trying to implement it into the business, seeing what works, see what doesn't work. Yeah. Really learning it and not just outsourcing it, where in the past where I've been, it's just easier just to pay for this. But with the AI, I think it's something that if you're not adopting it, I think you're going to be left behind. So I think having a really good understanding of it, being able to make the tweaks yourself, build the systems yourself, is just going to be kind of fundamental moving forward for, a company like us.
Fantastic. I'm excited to see what that looks like in the next year or two. So actually kind of speaking on that, what are you guys looking at implementing next, and what does F5 look like in your mind in the next couple of years?
It's continuing to find the right people. So we have about 14 full-time LOs right now, not including myself or my VP. I think ideally we'd like to fall somewhere between the 20 to 25 LO range. So always looking for, that right LO that can fit in, can fit our culture, fit our company, getting to that, what I think is a really efficient team size, 20 to 25, high producing LOs. And just continuing to build the best product for those LOs. So again, the AI, there's a lot of different things I'm personally working on. I think there's a lot of really cool stuff going on in AI voice. So one example, right? We've got one Spanish speaking LO. We only have one LO that can help our Spanish clients. We're looking at some stuff, some real-time voice translation stuff that can plug into our phones. It's not quite there yet. We're still kind of tweaking with it, but I mean, imagine that, right? If you could have a whole team that instantly can now real-time speak Spanish, can help all our Spanish clients, right? You have a whole processing team that now real-time speak Spanish. So stuff like that. And, I don't think AI is going to replace LOs, but I think it's going to make them a lot more efficient And I think, again, any company that's not embracing it or looking at it is going to be left behind. So a lot of stuff on the AI front, a lot of stuff on finding the right people, and again, just continuing to make the best product possible for our loan officers.
Well, and like you said, I don't think it's going to replace the loan officers and how they do what they do, but it's going to make them more confident to do what they do. You're not going to, get stuck with, oh, I wasn't able to help somebody. You can confidently walk into, a Spanish speaking situation and say, you know what, I'm the right person for you. I can figure it out. I can help.
Exactly.
So that's very cool.
Exactly. Yep. It's going to just provide more opportunities and just replace, inefficiencies.
Mm-hmm. So what's one thing that you'd say to a loan officer or a broker who's listening right now, who's capable of more, but they're just stuck playing small?
Well, define what small and big means to you, right? Because again, my example, big doesn't mean hiring 1,000 people. It just means, finding the right people and the right kind of motive for things. So I would say do it. You don't need permission, right? And that's coming from someone that's a planner that likes to have things planned out. Make the jump. You don't need that perfect plan. You need to start building something that, has everything lined up. You just need to stop selling for less. You need to stop playing it safe or, doing what's expected. A lot of times, once you realize playing small is actually expensive, you just kind of start playing big naturally. So do it. Is the overarching theme there.
Heck yeah. Love it, Ryan. Is there anything else that you want to share? Anything that you've ever, a class you've taken, a book you've read, or anything that comes to mind that was so impactful for you, you just have to share it?
Yeah, Extreme Ownership by Jocko. I'm not a military person. I'm not tough like that, but it's such a good book. It's, you start reading it, you're like, okay, well, I can't actually control those things. And it's like, well, okay, that's not the theme of the book. It's that mindset of once you start taking ownership and responsibility for things, everything just changes. Your whole mindset changes. Your whole approach to things changes. As the owner of the company, Matt Ishbia says all the time, right? You don't want to be a finger pointer. You want to be a thumb pointer, right? Taking as much ownership and responsibility over your actions, your decisions, what your company's doing is almost a requirement, I would say, if you're going to be a successful CEO. So if you haven't read it, read it. Addition to that, find the right partners, find the right people within your company, the right vendors, right? Shout out to you guys at Licensing Experts, licensing store, taking a ton off my plate just with, everyday stuff, but also helping me grow the company, right? Okay, you want to get South Carolina? Here's what you need for this, and that. It's like, okay, great, let's do it. So, having the right partners and people is something you can't overlook and you can't sleep on.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for your time, Ryan. Really appreciate having you on.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
All right, and that's a wrap for today's episode with Ryan McCallister, president of F5 Mortgage. So, wondering what to do next? Hit subscribe so you don't miss an upcoming episode. Head on over to licensingstore.com if you want help with getting licensed, staying compliant, or growing without the chaos. Share this with somebody who might find it helpful, and follow along because every episode will get you one step closer to being approved AF.